16th. Any public comment? Perfect. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes from March 19th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Mr. Burrows, Mr. Dormany, the agreement with HIC Altama LLC.
Yes, sir. This was discussed at the Facilities Committee meeting as well. You may recall that at the February committee meetings, we discussed an agreement with Hoyer, known as HIC Altama, that is building a large residential and commercial development on the northwest quadrant of Exit 42. They're going to be building approximately 2,000 houses, as well as some multifamily and commercial frontage as well. We approached them about acquiring property for the construction of a new wastewater treatment facility to service the Exit 42 and Highway 99 corridors along the North Mainland District there. They were agreeable to that. They, as portions of their on-site work, are installing larger diameter gravity sewer. Currently, without the construction of a new wastewater plant, which would be here in this corner of the property here where I'm circling, they would be able to lay gravity sewer back out to the Highway 99 right-of-way and into an existing gravity line that comes in right here near the new Hill Point Distribution Center. They are laying larger diameter gravity back this direction towards the plant site to accommodate that construction of a new plant. They're also building a temporary pump station on site that is pumping the flow back out until the new plant can be built. And they're installing a force main from the pump station all the way down this existing gravity system and tying into a force main on Shell Road that comes in from pump station 4118. So what we have before you today is an agreement for us to acquire 20 acres of property from HIC Altama in the up here. It has to be surveyed. The last discussion was for 16 acres. The request by the board was to take it to 20 acres. The agreement requires us to enter into a contract with a surveyor to get the 20 acres surveyed, and then there will be an appraisal done of the property and the appraisal done for the improvements that we requested above and beyond the necessary improvements for their infrastructure for the development, at which point they will then be granted capital fee credit for on-site use for the value of those improvements. There is also future phases of improvements included in the agreement if they need to get additional capacity before the new wastewater plant is put online to do SCADA improvements at pump station 4118 and 4119 to help coordinate the flow better, and then another phase of improvements to put in a new force main along Highway 99 from pump station 4119. Those would be, they would get engineering done, send us the bid ready package. We put that out for bid, and they would then contract with the lowest responsive bidder to do that work at that time. As part of the agreement, they would, upon dedication of the on-site infrastructure that they're currently installing, they would immediately receive reservation of capacity for 800 units, which is their first roughly 6 phases of property. And then as they brought on additional capacity, they would get the rest of their capacity. As the credits are accrued, they would be billed when the building permits are pulled for the capital improvement fee required for each location until they run out of credit. If, for whatever reason, their credit does not reach the level at which they need for all of their on-site work, they would then be responsible for the remaining portions of the capital fees above and beyond what their credit is. If it goes the reverse and their credit exceeds what they need for on-site, there is a 70% payback for capital fees in 3 listed sewer basins that would be utilizing these improvements. They would get 70% of those capital fees returned to them until they get their investment back for up to 5 years. And those are quarterly payments that would be made to them at that point. The total length of the agreement is 15 years or 5 years after the completion of the wastewater treatment facility, whichever is later. Almost assuredly, it would be the 15-year period because we should have a wastewater plant built well before a 10-year window is over. So there is no firm dollar value of the credit they're being provided at this time. Estimated right now is $5 million in round figures. And again, that would go towards on-site capital improvement fees for residential construction and potentially commercial construction, but mostly to the residential construction on the front end. And they, as discussed at the Facilities Committee meeting, they intend to start, they're doing the on-site infrastructure improvements now. They intend to start building homes on the facilities sometime around the end of the year. And they're going to take down approximately 10 lots a month and through the first several phases as the market bears it out. Do have a representative from Hoyer and a representative from Thompson Hutton here if there's any questions about the project specifically. Charlie is here for questions about the agreement, and we'll be happy to answer whatever you've got.
Thank you very much. Can we get a motion?
I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend entering into an agreement with HIC Altama LLC for 20 acres of property and additional infrastructure improvements for enhanced water and wastewater services along near Highway 99 and Exit 42.
Second.
Motion and a second, very well outlined, Mr. Burrows. Any questions or comments?
I have a couple of questions for the different phases I see on the map. I'm looking at the map towards the back here that's on there. What kind of timeline are we talking about for, like in phase one? How long is that development going to be, the process?
So with the anticipated average of 10 years per month, that first phase is 159 lots. So that's roughly about a year and a half build out for phase one. And most of the lots moving forward won't be at phases moving forward. Won't be as big as the initial phase, so they're right around somewhere between 80 to 100 lots per phase. And so with that 10-month window, depending on when what the market's looking like.
Right.
My assumption would be you're going to be doing infrastructure improvements in the future phases while they're building the homes in the current phases.
Correct. We would like to start.
So essentially you roll into the next phase as soon as you finish. Okay.
Are you handling the commercial development? I understand there's a commercial strip between your main road in and the interstate.
Correct. It's plus or minus 200 acres of commercial frontage that runs down by the interstate and then down by highway.
Are you handling the development on that also? Okay, right. And that is also going to be in phases? I mean, you're not going to just do it all at once?
I think they would like to do it all.
Okay.
But more likely it would
I see.
It would be phases.
Depending on whether you can shamelessly lure Publix in there. Right. Which would make for a nice community, I'd say. Definitely so. So that potentially it could go all the way up towards the area that we're talking about where our wastewater
Yeah.
treatment plant.
Long term, this is all planned to be built out in residential
Yeah,
construction.
so at the beginning, you're probably not gonna go past where it says future, you're not gonna be developing up in that area?
The idea would probably start closest to where the entrance.
Right.
And you would work our way up.
Right, okay, all right. Thank you.
All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Burrows, item number 3, fiscal year 2026 organizational budget.
All right, let's get this over here. Well, my cursor is about 35 times the size it needs to be right now. I don't know what's going on. All right, so this is the organizational budget request that was presented to you at the March meeting for your consideration. There are minor tweaks that have occurred since that March meeting. So what kind of things would be tweaked? Well, of course, we've had some people transition out of the organization, some people that have joined us during that time period, so those costs change slightly. If you recall at the March meeting, we were still waiting on finalizing our capital request for vehicles and equipment. That has been finalized. Some minor changes and things like that, but the bulk of what we're talking about is very similar. So we had 3 goals, which these are typically our same goals every year that we go into the budget. We want to maintain affordability for our customers despite what everybody is experiencing with rising costs. I keep hearing that costs are leveling out. That does not seem to be happening in our industry right now. Particularly on the project side, we're hoping to increase our project funding for next year to offset those rising construction costs. And then we want to be able to do all those things through improving our operational efficiencies. The more operationally efficient we are, the more affordable we can maintain, the more project funding we can have. Highlights from the budget: we are not requesting a rate adjustment this year. There's a couple of reasons for that, which we'll go over here in a minute. We are being able with this budget to fund approximately $1 million extra for capital projects, which puts us over the $10 million mark for annual transfer for capital projects. In 2017, as a point of reference, 2017 when I got here, we were transferring about $4 million a year for capital projects. So we have rapidly increased that capital project transfer, which allows us to reinvest quickly into our system. And then me and Commissioner Watson, he had some questions earlier, which we'll hit a little bit now. We combined some of our group expense accounts on the water and wastewater side. So if you look at the line item budgets, there's a lot of previous years you had budget amounts and expense amounts that are zeroed out this year, but there's new accounts that are in there. That's because we combined a bunch of those together, and we'll go through some of those in a minute. So the top line budget request for next year is just shy of $40 million, $39,830,000. That's a 2.32% increase off of this year's budgeted total. Again, no rate adjustment requested to fund that 2.3% increase. And where are those revenues coming from? A little over 40% comes from sewer revenues. Sewer revenues come from usage charges, industrial surcharges. So for example, King and Prince or Rich Products, if they send us flows to the sewer plant at Academy Creek that exceed 200 parts per million of BOD and TSS, they get a surcharge added to their monthly bill for the higher strength waste they send to us. And also sewer revenues is also where leak adjustments are captured, so they actually offset sewer revenues when we do leak adjustments. 21% is water revenues. That includes irrigation as well, 21% water revenues. About 12% debt service or REU fees, 18% admin or base fees, and then 2.5% interest income. Depending on what the bond market does, that might be undershooting for next year. We'll see what happens when it comes to that. Planning and construction contributes with their fees for reviewing development reviews and things like that. A very small amount, about $40,000 a year into our budget. And then the rest of them is lumped into one joint called other income. That's service fees, late fees, minor line items like scrap sales, fire protection fees, and septic receiving for septic pumping trucks. So some general revenue highlights. Our customer growth remains strong. I'll show you that here in a minute. Our usage revenue increases, so those line items for sewer and water, those revenue increases are solely based off of account growth and usage patterns in our system. And I will note, a couple of months ago, we finalized the sale of the Board of Elections to Glynn County, so we have removed all rental income from that. That wasn't a huge line item in the budget. It was $5,500 a month, but that has been completely removed from next year's revenue projections. So I talked about customer growth remaining strong. This is a 5-year snapshot, and this is based off the average number of customer bills we send out each month. So we have increased water bills 2.2% since last year, and sewer bills right at 2%. So that's about 500 in round figures water bills and about 500 sewer bills and 650 water bills a month more this year than last year. And that's from, bulk of that is residential growth, obviously. We do have some commercial growth, but the bulk of that being residential growth. So over the 5-year window, we've increased our water accounts almost 9% and our sewer accounts almost 8%. So that growth is funding additional revenue without having to increase our usage rates at this time. So the question that we always like to get asked is, where do you compare to everybody else? I actually do not like this slide, mostly not because it says bad information, but because everybody's system is different. Some people invest heavily in their system. Some people defer maintenance in their system. So it's not always the greatest snapshot, but here's how we compare. Our average residential customer uses about 4,200 gallons of water a month. Okay, sorry about that. We'll have it in there for you tomorrow. 4,200 gallons a month, so that's $64.31 for us. The average across a lot of other utilities in our area, $67.83. So we're right in line with average. I will say there is one other utility that I did not include that's in our area, and I won't name them because their average bill would have been about $80 higher and drastically skewed the scale on that bill. We're the black line, yes, sir. But you can't see. Hang on. Let me get a pointer.
Who's on the far right side there?
So this is us here. This is Charleston.
Charleston?
And then this is Statesboro if you live inside the city limits. Statesboro and Kingsland and Savannah utilize inside the city limits and outside the city limit rates. All right, so this is where those major revenue accounts come in by year. So this 2025 figure here is projected based off the end of March. Per the conversation me and Commissioner Watson, these are not linear. This is based off of percentage of revenue collected for the last 5 years by month. So that's projected forward. So if you do linear, you actually don't get to that number because, of course, April, May, and June are high water usage months in our region. So we'll do that. So you kind of see the consistent growth up in sewer revenues, consistent growth in water revenues. You will note, if you look here on the REU fees, which is the green bar, that number is projected to go down, which doesn't make a lot of sense, except for that removes Pinova's previous REU fees, which were $14,000 a month. So that has been taken out of the budget. Expenses by type on the expense side, roughly you can look at it as a third, and a third. We spend about a third of our money on personnel, about a third of our money on operating, and about a third of our money on projects. So that's been pretty consistent for us. So the actual project transfer is right at 26%, but the debt service for projects makes up about 7% on top of that. So that gets you to about that 1/3 percentage. The governing body is costing a whole 0.53% for next year. So we had to whittle that down a little bit for you guys next year. Expense highlights, we have with the reorganization of the wastewater department, we're budgeting 2 less personnel for next year. We were able to do that and gain some efficiencies in the wastewater department. And so that has reduced. The budget does include a 2.3% cost of living adjustment with the potential for merit increases on top of that for a combined maximum of 5%. So the 2.3%, if approved, would go into effect for all employees July 1st at the beginning of the new fiscal year, based off of their performance appraisal score, which occurs on their anniversary date. They get, if they get a 4 out of 5 overall, they would get, let's see, 2.7, so 1.35 on top of the 2.3, and if they got a 5 out of 5, they would get another 1.35 for a maximum of 5%. And that number, cost of living, is based off the CPI for southern cities of less than 2.5 million population. Combining those accounts, if you look at the old budget accounts, if it starts with a 43, it is a sewer account. If it starts with a 44, it is a water account. And so we had a lot of different line items that had 43, and it would be 43, 31, 43, 33, 34, 35, 36, all the way down. So now all of those overhead items for sewer, so all of the insurance, the personnel, the equipment, things like that, all is in a joint 4,300 account for all of sewer. On the water side, the same thing happened. We combined all of those overhead items into a 4,400 account instead of 4,430 and 4,440. And that gives us those combinations. So if you go through the line item, which I'll show you in a minute, we'll show you how that works. So expenses by division, wastewater, the combined wastewater accounts account for just shy of 50% of our budget. That makes a certain amount of sense. We run 3 wastewater plants. We have to pump wastewater everywhere, so wastewater is the largest expense that we have. Water accounts for 16%. Finance says it accounts for 13% here, but all of the employee health insurance charges for the organization gets charged to finance. So finance does not actually account for 13%. That's just where that is accounted for, and that's about a $1.7 million line item, which basically doubles their budgeted amount just for group insurance. Yes, sir. Appreciate you taking that for us, Dave. Admin, which includes customer service, IT, and meter reading, is 7.5% of the budget. Planning and construction, which you may think of as engineering, is about 6.5% of the budget. Purchasing and fleet and facilities maintenance, all is under one umbrella. That's 4% of the budget. And then the office of the director is 3% of the expense budget. So major increases in the budget. The first one that jumps off the page, if you total up all those items, the R&R transfer, which is the project reserve transfer, increase $1 million over last year, puts us over $10 million. Vehicles, this is a bit of a misnomer. Vehicles is at $238,000. That's because we bought 0 vehicles last year. We only bought equipment. So that was going to go up. And then banking and investment fees went up $185,000 because we changed banks to Synovus. And for the first year, they waived a lot of their fees as a get you in the door. And so they did not agree to continue waiving those into the future. So that line item increased to $185,000. Decreases into next year. Interest expense went down about $300,000. Standard amortization, you're going to pay less interest as you pay more on the principal. Capital leases, we paid off about $900,000 on the VACCON lease that we had with surplus funds from last year, so that $290,000 was taken out of the budget. And then chlorine and sulfur dioxide totaled about $177,000 decrease. There is a minor amount left in the budget for next year because we don't know 100% when the UV system is going to get turned on. So when the UV system gets turned on at Academy Creek, we will not need chlorine and sulfur dioxide. So that's why that line item decreased as much as it did. And here's our proposed capital list for next year. Security cameras are $20,000 worth of security cameras for that. It's not just for admin services. IT buys all those and installs them. The bulk of these will actually be installed at the wastewater facilities, the outlying wastewater facilities. In this building, we're pretty well covered with security cameras. We got to get some more security cameras on some of our outlying assets. GIS, that's a typo. That should be 56,000, not 15,000. Sorry about that. I'll fix that for tomorrow. A GIS server. We currently utilize Glynn County for our GIS servers, but Esri, who is a GIS provider, told us we can no longer do that anymore. We had to get our own licenses, and so we have to get our own servers as well, and so we have to buy new servers to house that equipment in-house. Mini excavator for wastewater treatment. Heavy equipment is very expensive, $125,000 for a new Mini X. 3/4 ton crew truck with a service body for the pump station crews at $75,000. Wastewater, a big 1.5 ton truck with a crane that we use to lift pumps out of wet wells and things like that. $125,000, mostly for the bigger body, and the cranes are very expensive as well on top of that. A portable light tower. We currently rent light towers when we have to do night work. We are trying to be much more diligent about doing work at night when it's going to cause traffic problems whenever possible. So we want to go ahead and buy a light tower so we don't have to continue to rent that every time. Mid-size pickup, so think a Ford Ranger size pickup for operator routes for the water lab, the water production guys. Currently, we utilize full-size trucks for that, and we're hoping to get one of these mid-size trucks in because if they're just running the routes and not hauling chlorine or anything, we really don't need as big a vehicle. So we'll benefit from the smaller vehicles, better fuel mileage, things like that. Water needs 2 new crew trucks. Those crew trucks have the long service bodies and the racks on them. So 2 of those is $130,000, and then they're also requesting new boring missiles. Boring missiles are what you attach to a boring rig to actually put pipe in the ground without having to dig. So we're requesting boring missiles for the 2-inch and 4-inch sizes. Anything bigger than 4-inch, we farm out to someone else, but we'll be able to do up to 4-inch, and those missiles are $17,000. So that's the end of the slideshow, but let me get over here as soon as I get this computer to work. And we'll scroll down. So most of those charts are in this document. I obviously pulled them from this document as we're going down. Let's see here. A couple things we didn't talk about. All the goals that I presented at the annual workshop were in there, and how if there was a budgeted tie-in for those are included in your packet. And then these historical expenses, this can be a little bit confusing. I will note at the top it says excluding capital purchases, because for a lot of our divisions, if you buy one vehicle, it really skews your expenses for the year. So I take those out to show how that's working in that regard. So this does not include those capital expenses. So these numbers don't match what you see earlier because of that information. But the line item budget is in here. If you look across the top, this is the 26 budget that's proposed. This is this year's budget, and this is projected budget based off of, the expenses are based off of linear expenses. The revenues are based off the rate at which revenues have been collected for the previous 5 years. And then let me go down here and show you. So the 4,300, again, these 4,300 items, I took all the personnel items and combined them together from last year so that you could get a sense of where we were tracking on the personnel items. These 4,300 personnel items actually do not exist yet. I just combined them for this presentation so you could see that number. But all these items here you'll see with zeros, that's because these are accounts that were housed in either the previous SP&M or the wastewater treatment line items, except for insurance, which has always been in the 4,300 line item. That's the workers' comp, property insurance, things like that. And then 4331 is the previous SP&M line items, and now those are all zeroed out because those would go away. And then 4333 is collection system, which is the linear assets. 4334 is the pump stations. 4335 goes away, that's the old wastewater treatment. And then 4337 is Academy. 4338 is Dunbar. 4339 is Southport. And then 4336 has to be kept separately per EPD rules for pretreatment. You're required to have a separate pretreatment budget. There's a very small line item in our budget, but we're required by EPD rules to maintain a separate pretreatment budget. And the same thing happened on water. I combined the water accounts here. So 4,400 is combined water. 4,430 is water production. So that's why you see zeros on the 4,400. And then 4,440 was water distribution. Those accounts have been combined where they have overhead, and then the things that are specifically used on the well site still remain on 4,430, and for the linear assets remain on 4,440. So things like vehicles, gas, insurance, things like that is part of the personnel is part of the overhead items, and then the individual items below that. Bad debt expense, you'll see our bad debt expense is quite high this year and last year due to some outstanding invoices that we have not received payment on yet. Those are not projected to continue forward into the next year, so we reduced that item down back closer to where we had been in previous years. We do not expect to collect the bulk of that money, but that will be written off, unfortunately, as bad debt. And you can see here we bumped our repair and replacement reserve over $10 million. You can kind of see how we were tracking as we've increased that repair and replacement reserve transfer over the years. And we do not budget SPLOST or capital fees. Those have specific purposes, and so we do not budget those. We collect those and use those for the intended purposes as they are brought in. And so they do not, those don't affect rates at all, so that's why they're not budgeted. A couple of things that Commissioner Watson asked, what do we do for hurricanes? We do not budget for hurricanes, mostly because it's a little bit of a, you'd guess whether I'm going to be there for 2 days or 10 days, and it's very difficult to do that. And theoretically, we get reimbursed 75% of those funds from FEMA as we expend them. We're still going through that process now. Y'all are having weekly or bi-weekly meetings with FEMA now? Bi-weekly meetings with FEMA, going through that process, trying to get that reimbursement done. We did, in October of last year, we took surplus funds from the end of fiscal year 24. We paid off 2 major line items. That was the unfunded liability on the pension and the capital lease for the VACCONs. The total amount was right at $2.2 million. And I say that number, if you zoom in here on the net budget for this year, it's projected to be $2.2 million over budget. That is because those $2.2 million in expenses are included in the budget. And that's a projected forward, so that number is probably actually a little higher than we would expect it to be. But from a tracking purposes, I'd rather overestimate where we're going to be at and then come in a little under and go from there. But I'll be happy to answer questions about any or as many of these items as you would like to, and see where we go from there.
It's definitely, thank you, sir. It's definitely worth noting that some of these expenses that we incurred in early 2025 budgeting process are reducing our solid renewal costs for generators, and if you want to cover some of those items.
Certainly. So biosolids is being reduced. If you recall at the last meeting, we cut a contract to repair our dryer. 2 things. One, we are highly going through solids at our Academy Creek facility now, and we expect to be at a much lower rate of solids processing once we get it under control. But also getting that dryer done. That dryer saves us about $75,000 a month in biosolids processing when it is running. It should be running before the end of the fiscal year. So going into next year, they'll do that. But we're also utilizing, when the dryer is running now, our sludge offloading facility, so we can dry the solids from Dunbar and Southport as well. And again, that reduces about 75% of the cost of those 2 facilities moving forward. as well. And then you'll see a lot of line items. I believe it's in 4331 where it was tagged to, oh, let's see, let me find it. It's in here somewhere. Oh, hurricane preparedness, there's a $427,000 line item for expense this year for hurricane preparedness. That's where all the rental generators and equipment and fuel and stuff we expended during the hurricane ended up at. And equipment rentals, large equipment rental dollars were spent at Academy Creek. Mostly, if you recall, last year we had an extended lead time on influent pumps. So we had bypass pumps set up that we were renting at Academy Creek for the first several months of this fiscal year at $35,000 a month to rent those equipment. Well, we've got 2 new pumps in the hole. The other 2 that we ordered are supposed to be delivered May 15th. If those get delivered May 15th, we don't have bypass pumps there. The other 2 are holding on, but we should have 4 relatively new pumps in the hole. We won't be renting that equipment. We're going through an extensive maintenance process at our wastewater plants now, and so we're spending more money today getting things fixed that should not be expended in the future through the improvements we're making there. I was saying during the facilities committee meeting we were going over the Academy project, I went down this morning and we had our crews doing about 3 separate projects on the plant site fixing things. We had our contractor from Reeves Young doing work. We had another contractor doing work on site. So we had 5 different crews working, doing ongoing project work at Academy Creek this morning because we're throwing a lot of resources at that to get that back where it needs to be at.
On the hurricane expenses, we can expect at some point from FEMA to be reimbursed a significant amount of.
Hopefully we'll reimburse 75% of that, hopefully.
I'll qualify at some point.
Yeah.
Going a little cross-eyed this week, putting together all the payroll and invoice information and receipts and everything that was turned in during Helene. And currently have a little over $300,000 in expenses that we'll submit. And we'll see how much of that gets allowed. And there's still more that I need to process and consolidate. But when that total comes in, whatever gets approved, hopefully, as Mr. Burke said, 75% for them to us. So it could be a healthy boost to help offset the cost that we incur at that time during that incident.
I think historically it hasn't been a problem.
It's a process. It's a process. It hasn't been a
Right.
problem. It's a
I don't mean
process.
not a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
we are generally reimbursed.
We are generally reimbursed for
Denied,
named storms when there's a declared state of emergency.
What's the average time for reimbursement? I understand that there are some that the county's working on
Well, I'll say
still.
this, we're still waiting on 1 reimbursement from Hurricane Irma for about
That's-
$90,000.
That's what I thought, okay.
And now we have the new FEMA, so who knows?
Right.
I say this, I was in Alabama when the tornado went through in 2011 was when it went through Tuscaloosa, and they told us they were still processing payments for Katrina when they were doing that storm.
But we got billboards saying,
Yeah.
stay in contact, so
Yeah.
there.
So hopefully they are more expedient, and part of that is incumbent on us to file it correctly the first time, so there's not a lot of hand-holding back and forth.
Right.
So we utilize, something we'll talk about later, to really help file that quicker with the CityWorks process.
Very thorough report, thank you.
Can I get a motion on item 3, please?
I move that the Finance Committee recommend the full commission take the following actions. 1, approve submission of the proposed fiscal year 2026 JWSC budget to the City of Brunswick and to Glynn County for their review and comment. And 2, approve the fiscal year 2026 JWSC budget in the amount of $39,835,000, subject to revisions resulting from comments received from the City of Brunswick and/or Glynn County.
I'll second the motion.
Would like to state, on that motion, we are required to submit our budgets to the city and the county per the operating agreement for their review. We send that to them. We'll get that out to them. If this is approved tomorrow, Friday, it will be sent to them. And then our traditional process is we will then host town hall meetings the first full week in June, one on St. Simon's, one on the mainland, so that the customers can come, get a presentation on the budget, ask questions. I also take the time to talk about our projects as well while we're there. And then the rate resolution that actually has all that information for what the usage rates are and everything will be brought to you at the June meeting for review and consideration. and that would,
Generally appear at both the county and the
yes.
city's.
No, I don't appear at their,
meetings?
we don't present to them, we just send them for their review. We don't present it to them necessarily. Now, we do have city and county commissioners that do attend sometimes our town hall meetings and things like that, so.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Good job, team.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4, this appointment of the auditor, Mr. Owens.
Good afternoon. Last year, the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission issued a request for proposal for auditing services, and subsequently the firm of Malden and Jenkins was selected as our provider for audit services. The initial agreement that was approved by the commission last year, about this time I believe, April last year, was for audit services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, with optional renewal years for the fiscal years ending June 30th, 2025 and 2026. As we're rapidly approaching the end of fiscal year 2025, it's now time for us to exercise that first optional renewal year and submit an engagement letter to the auditors. As you can see, the terms of the agreement were, last year we had audit fees of $24,900. This year, for our 2025 audit, those fees will be $25,400. And as was mentioned before the meeting, the agreement also had a clause of additional fees to be determined later in a range of $3,000 to $8,000 for the single audit, which covers things like our pension fund and other government audit findings that we may need to submit. That fee, whatever the final determination is, depends on how many programs we're involved in and how much or how complex that work is when the audit happens. And if you need to see that, it's on the second to the last page of the packet, second paragraph. At this time, the staff recommends that the Finance Committee recommend to the full Commission to approve engagement of the accounting firm Malden and Jenkins to perform the financial audit for the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 at a cost of $25,400.
I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend the full commission to approve engagement of the accounting firm Malden and Jenkins to perform the financial audit of the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, at a cost of $25,400.
I second.
Yeah, we talked in between meetings, because the budgeting process is linear, big word there, Andrew. The projected expense for the year on the budget is about $39,000. But we know that those are already fixed in stock, so probably around $31,000 or $32,000. That was the only question I had about the budgeting process related to the audits. I didn't know if there was other items outside of this particular.
Nothing else goes in that line item, no, sir.
I have a question on the actual people that come or physically do the audit. Is it the same people every year, or do they rotate their staff some?
We have had the same auditors. Of course, they will have turnover in their firms. So I believe this past year we had a new senior auditor on the engagement. The partner who leads the audit has been the same one for the past 4 years.
It's really healthy to have different eyes. I think that's a positive thing.
All in favor? 3-0. Item number 5, Mr. Burrows, is the contract award FEMA fixed generator installation.
Speaking of FEMA and FEMA taking time to accomplish,
There you go.
in 2020, we were awarded a hazard mitigation grant for the purchase and installation of 8 fixed generators for a total approved cost from FEMA of $1,357,735. We purchased 8 fixed generators from Cummins at a total of $1.25 million. So the budget was essentially consumed at the time we purchased the generators. We talked to FEMA about whether we wanted to get a budget adjustment, and they said, wait till you get the installation cost before you request the budget adjustment. Well, we now have the installation cost. The low bid, we bid this out for 8 sites, and there's a bid tab attached to the back. The low bid submitted by Popco Inc. is in the amount of $4,905,080. So the total funding for this project is $6,157,053.59. We will be submitting a budget adjustment request to FEMA to hopefully increase their approved funding amount. However, I do want to note there is no guarantees they are going to approve this and or improve all of it if they approve any of it. So we would be awarding this at risk of not receiving reimbursement for the amount over $1.3 million. If that were to come about, the overage of just shy of $4.8 million will be funded from uncommitted funds in the R&R reserve, which essentially depletes all but $500,000 of uncommitted funding in the R&R reserve. As discussed at the Facilities Committee meeting, we fund that at about $750,000 a month, so it does build up back quickly on the uncommitted funding. And with the budget, we discussed at $10 million, that'll go to a little over $800,000 a month that will go into that becoming July 1st. So cost of the generator installation is $4.9 million. I would note here, if you look in this bid tab, the overwhelming, or at least the bulk of that cost, $2.1 million of that $4.9 is for the installation of one generator. That is a new generator that is not currently installed. The other 7 are replacing existing generators. The installation for this one is very expensive because it is a 1,500 kilowatt generator versus the rest of them being much smaller than that. And we have to run new conductors all throughout their wastewater treatment plant, dig up asphalt, build a platform for that structure, the whole 9. So according to the suppliers that I talked to, the large diameter conductors that are being pulled from that large generator, there's about $1 million worth of wire to run that, to install that generator. So that's why that cost got so inflated on that regard. But also with the FEMA rules, as I brought up at the Facilities Committee meeting, FEMA will not reimburse you until you have completed the project. So we cannot request reimbursement for the fixed generators until they're installed. So we're a little bit of a catch-22 here where we don't know if we're going to get additional funding, but if we don't put them in, we don't get reimbursement for what we've already spent. So I do recommend us moving forward with this project, even if they are not going to reimburse us the funds, because these generators are critical for our operations. If this is awarded, Popco has under the instruction per the bid documents that they will install the 3 at Academy Creek first. 9 months. They will essentially be working on the big generator at Academy Creek for 9 months, and then having another crew working at the other sites in the in-between. The large generator to cut the road and everything, that's probably 6 to 8 months worth of work to get that work done. All the other sites will be about a month on
Are
site.
these generators currently in our possession?
They are all currently at the Academy Creek site.
I
Speaking of
move that the
generators.
Finance Committee recommend awarding a contract to Popco Incorporated for the installation of 8 fixed generators in the amount of $4,905,080.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Oh, wait, one thing. One thing I think is really very important, and I don't know that, people outside of this room understand how critical these things are to the functioning of our utility. I mean, these aren't casual, these are designed to handle disasters and to keep services going and prevent huge, big problems from happening. And
Well, actually on the water side, what we do in advance of storms coming through, we put all of our wells on generator before the storm gets here so that the water system never drops. The sewer side will wait for the power to go out before they come back on, because just
And our users don't pay attention to details. They turn on the water, then they just assume everything's fine. And this is really, and when you're in the middle of a disaster or something happening that changes the service, it's when it's most critical that it needs to happen.
Absolutely.
So, and that's why this is so important. I want that people to understand that if they're ever watching us. So, good.
Motion and a second, all in favor? 3-0. Thank you. Ms. Roberts, item 6, the GFA loan modification.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of you who were on the board with us back in 2019, you may recall that we approved a loan from the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. I'm sorry. Am I on the wrong?
Environmental
I'm on
Finance
the wrong.
Authority.
I'm on the wrong. This is G5, not GMI. Let's try this one more time.
That's the wrong
Second
one too,
time,
that's
right?
CityWorks.
Well, you know what? This cursor. No.
I'm telling you, it's giant, you can't use that thing.
That's an awfully big cursor.
Well, I was receiving the commentary that I can't see the cursor, so I said, okay, let's go ahead and address this so
We got it
everyone
now.
can see the cursor. So we can see the cursor now, but apparently it's not functioning as we had hoped. Okay, back to serious matters. So the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, GFA, provided us a loan from their Clean Water State Revolving Fund in the amount of $15 million. That loan was for work at the Academy Creek Water Pollution Control Facility, as well as some work that we plan to do in our gravity sewer system. Well, we had sequenced that work as such that the Academy Creek work would be done first. Unfortunately, as you may remember, back in 2020 and the following years and months, we had some delays as a result of COVID, supply chain issues, delivery issues, things of that nature. So the project was delayed a couple of times. So we've been back to GFA to go through the process of requesting a loan modification simply for the extension of time. We did one back in February of 2022 and one in September of 2023, both of which were granted. So this would be our third loan modification. This one we're extending time through April 1st, 2026. You may have noticed in your packet that the end of construction was shown as December of 2025. They have a 3-month sort of wrap-up period at the end of construction, so that's why the difference in those two dates, in case you're wondering. But again, this one is not changing the value of the loan. It's merely changing the amount of time that we were given to complete the work. The original interest rate was 2.38%. It will remain 2.38%. Repayment period is 30 years. Again, that will remain 30 years.
Yeah, well, this should be the final one, and the reason I say that is the sewer rehab work is actively being done right now. It's expected to be completed theoretically this month, but there's some, I've mentioned at the facilities meeting, there's some lines by Glynn Academy they may have to wait till after school's out to get to, but they should be done by early June at the latest, so we should have no problem.
CIPP project?
Yeah, yes. And that's why we got the lower interest rate. CIPP projects work for conservation funding because they reduce energy use because you don't have as much water being pumped. That's bond.
I'll move the Finance Committee recommend the full commission approve the modification for time extension for GFA loan CW 2019008 in the form of the attached resolution.
Second.
Any comment? All in favor? 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 7 is CityWorks.
Ye- Yes, sir. CityWorks is a program. The actual contract is with Azteca System, who owns the CityWorks brand. This is an asset management and work order management system that our staff utilize to tag work orders to individual assets so that we know the cost we're spending on all of our assets. And we also utilize CityWorks for inventory management through their storeroom function. And as I mentioned earlier, CityWorks also houses all the data we use to file for FEMA reimbursement. So we generate a project called Hurricane Helene and tag all the work orders to that, and then we can print reports out to do that. It's an annual contract, and the ELA is Enterprise License Agreement, so it's essentially the subscription and maintenance of the CityWorks program, the storeroom add-on, the CCTV add-on which is what we utilize to store the videos that we do sewer inspection with, and the mobile application add-on. The cost for next year is $51,046.63, which is a 5% increase over this year's fees. This is budgeted in multiple line items based off the number of users per department that utilize CityWorks. So we need to talk about the office of the director because David's not there anymore. I need to reduce my allotment. I am a power user. I'm hardly using 3 times what most people are using, but.
I'll move the Finance Committee recommend approving the renewal of fiscal year 2026 CityWorks Enterprise License Agreement with Azteca Systems LLC in the amount of $51,046.63.
Second.
They were very serious about their 5%. They went down to the penny.
That's standard in software everywhere, so. You know, I want to tell the other commissioners that if you ever have an opportunity to get a demo of the program. It's very impressive. We have a couple of people here that are really pros. I mean, they can pull up data. Andrew smiles from ear to ear as, you know, when he asks for something, boom, up it comes. So it's really quite a program.
It certainly does, yes, sir.
It's pretty seasoned too. It's been around for, what, I can't imagine.
We've had it since 2015, but CityWorks has been around for probably 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
It does really well on linear assets. There's some challenges using it on vertical assets, but most of what we do is linear assets, and we make it work for the vertical assets.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Okay, the last item for approval is the Neptune 360 renewal, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. But continuing the theme with the critical software, this is for the Neptune 360 renewal. As you may have as you may remember, during the meter installation, we had a software package that we were using. At that time, we were focusing on the dashboard. We were looking at the information that the staff was getting from usage throughout the system, things of that nature. But that's not all that software does. That software is actually critical to our everyday operation with our meter reading, our billing, and several customer service functions. So we have that software under subscription, very much like we do some other software, and we pay per active endpoint in our system. So we started with a 10-year agreement. The first 3 years were during the project. So then the fourth year was a little bit of an increase. It was a 15% increase from the first 3 years. This year the percentage has stayed the same, but because of the number of endpoints, we're increasing a few endpoints from what we had last year. So the total for this year is going to be $67,685.24. And again, this is an annual renewal. So you'll be seeing me back again hopefully next year.
I move that the Finance Committee recommend that the full commission authorize payment of the annual subscription for the Neptune 360 software to Delta Municipal Supply Incorporated in the amount of $67,685.24.
I'll second the motion.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should have clarified that the reason that Delta Municipal Supply Company is the one to whom we're making the payment, that's our Neptune distributor. Those are the ones through whom we bought the meters. So we'll continue to pay back to the distributor, who will then pay to Neptune.
This also includes technical support?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is it from Delta or from the actual?
It's from Neptune.
From Neptune.
The service
Okay.
itself is provided by Neptune, but because of the fact that we initially went through Delta, that's
Right,
the party
yeah.
with whom the contract is
I
held.
know that during the process of setting up the meters and everything and getting the software set up, they were extremely helpful.
Yes, sir, most certainly were.
Very receptive.
Yes, sir,
to
very
you,
responsive.
Especially since you were very involved.
That's one way to put it, thank you.
Yes.
32,000 meters?
Yes, sir.
Is that just done annually? How many?
Yes, sir.
We just record?
Yes, sir, we do it. We do account. Well, they'll know because they have access to the system as well, so.
And I think another thing of note is that, because I sat in one of the training sessions, is that all of the data that's collected is actually kept in the cloud. It's on Amazon Web Services,
Sir.
which means it backs up probably in no fewer than several hundred places around the world.
Exactly right.
Whichever data center that's using. So our data is safe and secure, so it's not a problem.
And we will be leveraging this data for the upcoming master plan rewrite for better information about where we're using water at throughout the system, both on the water side and projected sewer flows from each basin based off the meter endpoints that are tied to that. Instead of averaging out, we're going to use 300 gallons a day per customer for that master plan. Well, we know these customers average this many gallons in this basin every day.
So the having these meters actually is paying off again.
Oh, absolutely.
Much clearer data for you. Okay, great.
Second, now all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
It's just slightly above chill point in
Yeah,
here
I know
now.
that.
Oh, my goodness.
Went from not,
I think what you're saying is it's finally comfortable.
it's 68 in here now, so.
Oh,
Like I said, finally comfortable.
So if my voice gets a little squeaky, it's because it's very cold.
Okay.
So,
They're with you.
all right. We have before us the balance sheet as of March the 31st, 2025. Our cash and cash equivalents, a little over 2.8 million. Accounts receivable, 1.9. That's slightly under where it was this time last year. Our bad debt there is 368. That's after we, what was the money we got from ARPA, or the offset those who needed some payment?
To help people pay their.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I
LIWA,
could not
yeah.
think of that, yes.
You gotta
So-
keep your 800 acronyms straight.
LIWA. Yes, thank you, it is. So after that ended, our bad debt has went up just a little. We are doing what we can. Prepaid expenses, $855,000. That is up due to our unexpired insurance. We renewed our property liability. All of that goes into prepaid expenses, along with cities works. Any of the subscriptions for licenses goes into prepaids, and then we expense them out on a monthly basis. Capital fixed assets, you see a change in that. We did add a little over 4.3, almost 4.4 million in new assets to the fixed asset register this month, or through this year. But we also fully depreciated almost 4.6 million. So that, not including depreciation, is that change. And those almost 4.4 was capital contributions. Those were dedications. Our total assets, $285,512,000.
Can we go back for a minute? The construction in progress?
Yes,
Is that correct? 38 million
Mm-hmm.
yes. And I'll,
current?
yes. I'll go into that a little more on the project.
No, I'm just, the number just.
Todd's pictures took so long.
Yeah, no.
Yes. Page 2 of our balance sheet, I have our total liabilities. There's not a lot of change in the liabilities at this point, but our total liabilities a little over 78 million. So our asset to liability our assets are 3.65 times greater than our liabilities at this time, so that's a great number. We're happy with that. Any questions on our balance sheet? Okay, on to page 3. Summary revenue. On the left-hand side, we have our percentages used for the calculations for the sewer and the water, the debt administrative fees. Our operating revenues are a little over 2.2 million over budget. Again, part of that is our interest income. Our annual budget for interest income was $1 million, and we have blown way above that. We'll take every bit of it that we can get. Our net operating is over budget by 1.6. Again, that has to do with some expenses that I'll mention on the next page. At the bottom, capital improvement fees, $1,647,000. And our SPLOST revenues to date for the 2022 SPLOST is a little over almost 2.1 million. Any questions on that? I had a note here. I don't remember what it is. On to page 4, our expenses by division. Again, our operating expenses, they are over the projected budget by almost 3.9 million. Our purchase orders, 1,583,000. Again, some of these are for operating. We have one that is for a capital expense that has not been purchased yet.
Well, it's been purchased, it just ain't showed up yet.
Yeah. Not been expensed yet. 145,000. Some of the other POs here are purchased equipment, 335,000. Purchased equipment repairs. Oxygen, we have a PO for 160,000. Some chlorine and phosphate, 70,000. SPNM has 286,000 in purchase orders. Again, some of these will go over into next year, depending on what time they come in. If they are contractual purchase orders and they roll over, the budget does not roll over, just the expenses will roll over.
And as we talked about when we were going to the budget, those pension expenses that we prepaid
Yes.
are all throughout those individual line items on those personnel costs.
Right. And then, of course, you will see a little bit of a skew on the interest expense also. For the VACONs, we pulled off some of that early. Any questions on expenses? Okay, on to page 5. Supplemental schedule of cash balances, or cash and cash equivalent. The $2,822,000 mentioned on the balance sheet, this is the breakdown. Revenue account, which is our operating account, all of our receipts for the billing that goes out to our customers come into this account. And we hold it there until we need to transfer it to another account to meet a specified need. When we do disbursements for our payables, we transfer the requested amount over to our checking account. Same thing for payroll. Everything stays in the utility revenue till we get an invoice stating that we need to meet a specified amount for payroll, then we transfer it into payroll. We do have small balances in there in case there was an emergency or something happens. So the general checking, $175,969. That is a reconciled balance after any disbursements have been taken out. So that's a good buffer if we need an emergency check. Change in petty cash accounts, a little over $4,000. That is the drawers up front, and $100 in petty cash. Page 6. For that, it just gives us a total at the bottom for what makes our $74,841,796 is in cash and cash equivalents. And there's the general breakout. $48,870,000 is in investments. If you'll move on to page 7, gives us a breakdown of our securities. That 48.8, 6.4 million is cash and cash equivalents, and the 42.almost 5 is in securities.
A lot of big numbers there.
Any questions on cash balances? On to page 8 and 9, this is our project cost summary. I have highlighted some of the projects that are $1 million and over for this year's expenses only. So through June 30th, 2024, we were $24,082,300 of cost up to June 30th. We've had $14,878,000 in new expenses this fiscal year. Please note at the top we have the CW and DW loans. That is not included in that construction in progress amount. The funds are paid through the R&R funds, so they're recorded on this worksheet, but they are not part of our construction in progress total. For that CW and DW, I will mention that we are paying on our loan for the DW loan. It's $89,230.24 a month. So each month the principal goes up $5.15, and the interest amount goes down $5.15. So our payment stays the same. For the CW loan, the clean water, we're paying somewhere between $19,000 and $20,000 a month on interest on that loan, which makes up that almost $1 million that we've put into that account to date. Our current construction in progress total, $38,960,000. We'll just say $39 million. page 9, a huge portion of this funding for this 15 million is from the R&R. $12,740,000 has come from the R&R account. And there's the breakdown on the others. At the bottom of the page, we have, excuse me, our tap fees. To date, as of March the 31st, $1,647,000 is what we have received in that. That is down from this time last year. We had almost 2.5 million at that time. So that big difference comes from South Mainland. It was 340,000 more, and Brunswick was 463 more at this time last year.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
On the repair and replacement reserve, I'm just going across the lines there. I see the cash balance, 23,435,000, and to complete encumbrances. So those are funds that are either committed or need to be committed to complete projects.
That's correct. So that column, if you flip to the previous page, that includes all of the budgeted funding that's included in there. So when I say uncommitted funding, that's that available balance at the far right. So say on the FEMA project, it says 3.6 available on the R&R, and then there's on the far right on project 801, 1.3 available to complete. So that's where we got the 4.9 million for the FEMA project.
And these are all these different projects have different, obviously have a lot of different completion dates.
Yeah, there's a lot of different completion dates, and I will say some of these projects look like they're going to come in under budget. So once those projects are capitalized, we'll then release those funds back into the R&R uncommitted reserve.
When I get the all clear that the project is finished and we can move it from the top portion down to the capitalized portion, at that time, any existing balance on the PO is released. And
Back into the R&R.
yes. Any questions on page 9? Page 10. This is our quarterly update on the group insurance as of March the 31st, 2025. Unfortunately, I made an error I did not find until earlier today. This middle section, those numbers, it did not update on the spreadsheet. I'm not sure what's going on. The bottom portion is correct. Our total actual expenses to date is $1,387,862. So that upper portion was apparently from the previous, and it just didn't update the totals.
So that 21,000 is not correct?
Is not correct. It's actually 81,347. So on the admin and the stop loss, we have at the beginning of the month, TSI, Teamwork Services, pays for a medical, and then the premium comes out of, we generally have 2 payrolls a month, so half the premiums come out the month at the first of the month to offset that cost. During the second payroll, the other half comes off. So that is generally what that is, but in the past year, we have received $211,826 in varying forms of rebates or refunds. That total goes back into that admin, to that
Rebates or
group.
refunds, what are those?
Just some of them are just UHC rebates.
Typically, they're prescription refunds.
Oh, okay. I was going to say there must have been some sort of specific category.
Typically, they're prescription refunds.
Yes.
Or maybe some errors on some,
I don't know if the insurance company ever commits that they made an error.
no,
Well, we did.
They do make errors, but they usually,
Well, we did.
I was going to say yes.
Of the $211,000, $57,500 was a refund of billing.
Okay.
So that again goes back into that section.
Sure,
So on my worksheet, the total that is the invoices that we pay weekly, we don't, that just stays the same. So all of the, everything else goes back against that admin.
I mean, it would be fair to say that we have a very good working relationship with United Healthcare as our third-party administrator.
We seem to.
And I think we are.
I've not had any
I think
issues.
we're doing, if they're working with us like that and sending refunds and stuff, they're keeping up on things.
Yes, and TSI does a good job of managing that for us. But anytime I reach out to United Healthcare for invoice questions or whatever,
We
they're
did have
great
a
at
meeting,
responding.
speaking of insurance, we had a meeting, me and Ms. Roberts had a meeting with Katina Tyndall with First Coast Benefits, starting to look at next year's renewal. They don't have the rates yet or anything that comes in June, but just trying to look at what programs we might want to look at and how we might can drive costs down a little bit in some certain areas, and trying to figure out where we might could be more successful in that.
So the actual expenses for the self-funded part is $1,420,873, which brings our total to the 1.387. Our budget as of the 31st was a little shy of 1.2, and we are over budget at this time at 188,537.48.
If that number gets too far out of whack, we do have that group insurance reserve. We can,
Yes,
there's a group
Oh, that's-
insurance reserve
that's
of
just the
like
working-
900,000 or
It's
a
on
million.
the
Yeah, it's on
cash balance.
sheet
Right. Oh, that's right, that was the thing you.
that we set up, right.
Right. The other
it's
money is just for-
992,764.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's, I thought we.
Every
paid-
Friday.
Yes, we receive invoice by, they usually have it out to us by 6 a.m. on Fridays. If for some if for some reason we are closed on Fridays, then I just reach out and say, we'll be closed on Friday due to a holiday, and we transfer funds on Monday morning. And they're great working with us regarding that. Any questions on any of the financial statements? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. We have
handouts.
handouts,
We got parked.
yes. How many more we need? We good?
Oh, sorry.
Here, I've got,
Hot off the press here.
I got, I'm good, yeah, I'm good, so. I was the one that asked Ms. Roberts to do a presentation about the my usage thing. And it's really kind of funny because the other day I talked to someone over in the public shopping center, and he said, "Aren't you on the commission?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, let me tell you a story." He says, Livo came through and put in his new internet, and about 3 days later, they noticed the water pressure dropping in their house. So he called the joint water and sewer and confirmed they came out and did a good job. They said, well, unfortunately, it's on your side of the meter, it's not on our side. And so he called the plumber and fixed it. And he said to me, is there any solution to that? And I said, well, the one thing you could have done is you could have signed up for the My Usage program, because it would have alerted you right away. Because even though it wasn't like a complete break in the line, there was obviously a much higher water usage. And he caught it on his own by the fact that it was lower pressure in the house. But I think this is really important for our customers, and I think it's fairly common almost everywhere. I mean, if you have a credit card, you can be sure if all of a sudden a charge comes on there, someone's going to call you and let you know or notify you. So this is a great opportunity for our customers to monitor what's going on with their accounts and not have that surprise bill that's $600 one month. Which is kind of important. So I think you have some literature here.
I do, but it doesn't need to be so structured. You had requested that we provide some more information
Okay.
for our
Right.
customers, and so I wanted to go ahead and have something prepared in case that was what you
Okay.
needed.
Well,
I
I'll
can-
just kind of go over some
Absolutely.
of the things here. Is that, there's lots of ways you can do it on a tablet, on a PC, or on your phone. There's actually an app to download, I believe, isn't there?
Well,
Or is the web-
once
just
you
the
sign
web- just
once
the
you sign up
website?
online,
Okay,
you're connected
right.
whichever device you choose to use.
And the other thing is that if you go to our website and go to customer service, there's a My Usage section. And you probably need to sign up for that. You do need to register. And that will connect you into your email account and everything. And then once you get into that, then you have the opportunity to actually look at what your usage has been over a period of time. And it's really important because if you're interested either in your expenses or in conservation, it gives you a look, and you can customize that completely. Ms. Roberts actually sent me a tape of the demo that was done on it. And you can go back 3 months, a year, you can do whatever you want. And it is complete information, and you can set parameters. So if you say, if I'm using so many gallons a month, let me know if I'm over by 10% or 20%, so that I know what's going on here. Or I think there's also a vacation mode.
Yes, sir.
If you go out of town, that you can actually say, there shouldn't be any water usage in my house. And you could set that, and that will alert you if there's someone using water, if someone's watering their lawn with your hose, or filling the pool up next door.
It's all your way.
you
It
might
has
get a-
happened before, sir.
It is, it has indeed.
I'm sure that's happened before, but you'll be alerted with this. And I think you gave a sample of a text message.
I did, yes, sir. This is the email. You mentioned the out-of-town alert, so I wanted to go to this one in particular.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I would like to draw your attention to the fact where it says actual usage, 72.399 gallons. So it's that granular, the level to which you can select your your notification. And then this is the text message. This is also the out-of-town alert. I will give one cautionary tale about the text messages.
Okay.
They deliver whenever they time to deliver, and it could be at 2 o'clock in the morning. It could be at 6 o'clock in the morning. So if someone chooses to use this feature, which I hope you do, it's been very beneficial for me personally, just know that when you go to bed, you might want to turn off those alerts on that particular notification, unless you really want to know at 3 o'clock in the morning that you bypassed your usage threshold.
Well,
So,
depends. If you're on vacation, maybe not.
exactly, exactly
But then again,
right.
maybe so.
Yes, sir. But yes, sir, either text message or email, you actually can get both if you choose to do that. So however you choose to receive your notifications.
And our customers should know that there's no fee involved in this. This is completely part of your account. And once you sign up, you're in. And you can get all this information. And like I say, maybe you want to turn it into a project for your kids in school and talk about water usage and conservation. And you have some good charts, that does great bar charts and everything. It's really nice. So, and I think you've got some samples here on some of the bar charts.
Yes, sir. This is one that matches the usage period. I had shown you the 72.399 gallons. Well, on the chart, it rounds to the 10th of a gallon. So we're a little bit off from the 72.3999 on this picture.
Okay.
But the red box there shows you where that usage occurred, that it came to that particular figure for that particular customer during that period that received the notification.
And like I said, there is no charge for this. It's something that's included in your water account, and you just simply have to go on the website and sign up for it, and then you'll be able to monitor this and have the information for yourself. And you can set the parameters yourself on the usage. So if your relatives are coming, you might want to bump it up a little bit because they got teenagers and they take long showers.
That's right. That's right.
But you can use this, and you should use this because it's important that you don't get any surprises in terms of large bills. So please sign up for it, and while you're on there, please go ahead and switch over to electronic billing, please. We would love to do that and save some money for our projects rather than for postage. So we could do that. I was at doing my annual checkup with the doctor the other day, and I said, "Do you use the electronic billing?" She said, "No, I didn't know I could do that." I said, "Sign up." And she said, "I'm going to tell everyone in the office too."
Fantastic.
So she was signing up that day. So anyway, please use that. Please use these features. We are paid for this. We feel like it's a very important part of giving our customers the information. So if you have a chance, please take your time and sign up for it.
Well, Commissioner Cook, thank you for not only the time to present some additional information for our customers, but thank you for being an advocate for us out in the community. That's wonderful that you're encouraging folks to use those services.
problem.
So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all I got, sir.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.